I suppose the best thing to do when you're trying to review a TV show like The Last of Us, and we're talking about episode 5, Endure and Survive, is to be honest. And my honest opinion whilst watching this show and my initial thoughts were, okay, it's a trash fire again. They've done it again. They've done exactly what they did with episode 3. This one kind of starts off a continuation from what I thought was a really great episode, number 4. Right off the bat, I saw the sign language and I was thinking, okay, maybe it's because they're trying to be quiet here and they have this kind of rapport where they can kind of speak covertly. But no, it was throughout the entire episode and I don't know why. Kind of like watching The Walking Dead later seasons when, the majority of people that weren't even deaf or dumb were using sign language for no other reason, only the Oppression Olympics. I felt like we just jammed this in here. Nobody's talking about it online. Just like my review of Bill and Frank's Romance, nobody was talking about that. I seem to be one of the only people that jumped on board and was like, hey, this is shit. So I'm watching this episode and I'm thinking, okay, we're talking about deviating from the story, right? Why did we do this? Because if you go back and you watch the cutaway scenes from The Last of Us, the story of Henry and Sam, absolutely beautifully told. 2 great characters. Now, I'm not saying that in this episode they weren't great. I think that it was just a forced narrative that was put in there. Oh, it took me out of the beginning of the episode. That's what I'm trying to say. And through non-linear storytelling, we see that Sam and Henry were watching Ellie and Joel in their interactions when they arrived into the city and they were ambushed and Joel took out 2 or 3 guys. In the video game, of course, that was a way bigger scene. In this, it was a bit more refined. But that does bring me to the point that the showrunners, Cuckman and Mason made before the show even aired, where they said we're going to reduce the violence and make it mean a little bit more. But if we look at the trajectory of Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, who is absolutely standout for me. I do not like Pedro Pascal. I don't like anything that he stands for. But there is absolutely and utterly no doubt that he is the standout in this show. His portrayal of Joel is absolutely brilliant. And I think when we talk about infuriating moments, I think that this show is one of them moments because he could be so much better. As the premise of this episode then unfolds, we see that Joel, Ellie, Henry and Sam are on this journey through the tunnels to escape the city, to escape the evil clutches of Kathleen. We had a scene with Kathleen and I got some stick in my last review saying that she was a pretty believable, decent character. And in terms of the squeaky voice, it is what it is. And in terms of her being a female surrounded by all these buff guys with guns and she's the leader, yes, in the real world that's unrealistic. That just would never happen in a million years. But in terms of this episode, I still liked what she did, because during the interrogation scene of all these curtain twitchers that were sitting down that had ratted her and her brother out to Fedra just for a reward, for a little pat on the head. Because if we look at where we are here in 2023, over the last 2 or 3 years, all we've had is cuck soy boys who wanted a little pat on the head from the government, who were more than happy to say, hey, this guy's not doing this and he's not adhering to this certain mandate. I thought it was reflected well in this episode and the last conversation from episode 4 with Kathleen and the doctor. So that was something that made me more attracted to her character, because it was like, you're all crying, you're all weeping now in the aftermath of decisions that you've made, and you were more than happy to rat everybody out just to conform and just to be a good little sheep. So I kind of dig that story about her. So Joel, Ellie, Sam and Henry are on this journey through the underground tunnels to try escape the city. A lot of the character development that was built up in episode 4 seemed to be almost rushed, in terms of now we have Ellie almost like she knows Joel for 10 years, and when he says something sternly that it's not going to happen, she's kind of going, oh no, it is, because this is what he does, because in a couple of minutes he's just going to change his mind and he's just going to act all angry. And it's like, you're actually stripping away what Joel is, and also you're totally and utterly undermining Joel and Pedro Pascal's character / performance. And that happened a lot through this episode, so that kind of annoyed me. And during a decent conversation between Joel and Henry, we realised that Henry was on the run from Kathleen because he had ratted out her brother to the government to save his own brother for some medicine. It was a decent and a nuanced conversation and a decent and a nuanced plot. I think Lamar Johnson, the actor who played Henry, was extremely good in this episode. It actually led to a very good final third of this episode, where Henry, Sam, Joel and Ellie come out of the tunnels. They're on the other side of the town and we have a sniper. Someone's taking them out. Joel has to go and get the guy. So he goes in, sneaks in there. There's some old guy. He tells him, don't do it, man. The guy made a move. Boom. Kills him. Awesome. Should have shot him before he even told him not to make the move, in my opinion. So Joel takes the position of the sniper. And then we have Kathleen with this anticlimactic scene where she actually gets to face down Henry and Sam. These two people are her main priority. She wants revenge for her brother's death, and she finally faces them and then gets killed like 30 seconds later. So it was fairly anticlimactic. We have all these clickers, we have all these zombies that are just like coming out of nowhere. We have a massive bloater. That was a decent enough scene. Looked tiny little bit of CGI-ish for me, but I think it was a decent scene. And as we reach the final chapter of this episode, after all the excitement, we have Joel, Henry having this conversation. They're holed up in a motel. Ellie is playing with Sam. Everything is good, but we know what's happening. If you played the game, we know what's happening. I think the way this episode and the director played this whole thing was extremely good, because we know that Sam turns, he attacks Ellie, Joel tries to save him, and Henry is forced to shoot his brother. And then, being so inconsolable, he shoots himself. And it was an extremely emotional and well done scene. And that lended itself to this very sobering end where we have Joel burying the two lads and a little interaction between himself and Ellie about, okay, let's just get back on the road and make our way west. The emotions weren't overdone, but we totally got that this was a character building moment for Ellie and for Joel to see what had transpired with Sam and his brother. And when the end credits rolled, just like episode 4, I found myself being extremely infuriated, because if this show was made 5 or 6 years ago, we would absolutely have a masterpiece on our hands. But what we have now is a gaslit masterpiece, because we have a shill media that are more focused on beating agendas and messages into this show. Episode 3, gay story, absolutely phenomenal. Can't get better TV out there, even if you tried. Absolutely phenomenal. Episode 5, deaf kid, oh my god, second best episode on the planet, and everybody's doing the crying emoji again. And I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to ask the question, why did you do that? Well, I know why. Again, it's like the rhetorical question from the last video. It's about agenda, about representation and inclusivity. And these two words turn me off of any TV show, off of any film or any game. As soon as I hear someone banging on about inclusivity and representation and diversity, it's like bang, turn it off, click, gone. Don't want to know about it. And with this episode, I thought, again, lost potential, could have been spectacular. When you see the side-by-side juxtaposition between the original cutaway scenes of Henry, Sam, Joel and Ellie and what we saw in episode 5, honestly, the gameplay is better. When you see Sam and Ellie interaction the night before he actually turns, what makes the Etch-a-Sketch better? That's all I want to know. It's the question I want to know. What makes that a better episode than what was done in the previous game, in the source material? And just like Bill and Frank, what made that better than what we had already seen? That's all I want to know. If anybody can answer that question, jump into the comments, let me know your thoughts. Maybe hit subscribe and share out the video. I appreciate it. Cheers.